Hey, we're talking about Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episode 11, Rosetta. We are going to do our spoiler free reviews, and then we're going to get into a spoiler breakdown of the episode starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Soul Show. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Chandra.
So, the spoiler free log line of this episode is while Captain Burnham leads an away mission to a planet that was once home to the aliens responsible for the DMA, Book and Tarka secretly infiltrate the U.S.S. Discovery. This is written by Terri Hughes Burton and directed by Jeff Byrd. So, Chandra, what did you think of this episode?
I liked it. It got a little hokey in some places for me, like bogged down
Hmm.
in the science of it. It just sounded weird to me, but maybe that's because I am a scientist. I don't know. But I liked it. I liked the idea of them trying to learn more about Tensi before they actually meet Tensi. And they learned, I think, some pretty interesting things about the species. Not a whole lot, but I think in terms of being able to communicate with them, it does look like they're setting us up for a different type of communication. Certainly, yeah, there's going to be like nonverbal communication involved. So I thought that aspect was interesting, and you start to see the form of Tensi take shape, right? So the writers of the show already told us that there's going to be a species we've never encountered before in Star Trek. And so I think we've all been excited and anticipating a lot like what they're going to look like. I don't know if it's really going to live up to expectations. I think it's a hard thing to do when you take so much time
Mm-hmm.
building up to this moment. Uh, but it felt very much like an old, typical Trek episode in a way mission, learning about a new species. So kind of, I guess, a lull before. I'm guessing the last couple of episodes of the season are going to be extremely exciting because this was not, yeah, it was, not very exciting action wise, but you see Book and Tarka fumbling some more, I guess, doing their thing, continuing to cause
Mm-hmm.
problems, right? Um, and yeah, and Adira makes an appearance. Jett makes well, that's a spoiler, but yeah, I think this was just it just sort of felt like a regular episode, a little bit of a lull before hopefully they ramp things back up. I can't hear you.
Thank you. I was talking to Google when you were talking, and I muted my thing. I forgot to turn it off. So thanks for that. Um, I like the episode too. I actually liked it better than last week, even though this episode has the same issue that last week has, in that they're kind of like slowly moving the plot forward of the entire season, and we're not at 10C
Hmm.
yet. We saw this in the previews for this episode, so there's not much of a spoiler saying that. And also the log line actually explains what's happening in this episode. So they get onto this planet, and they do discover some things that will help in the next couple episodes. But I think, as you said, there's a lot of build up right now because we 10C has been wreaking havoc either intentionally or unintentionally for the entire season. So we kind of want to see who they are and what they look like. And we get some clues to that in this episode, but we don't really get any answers. And like you said, we have two more episodes left. That was my main issue with the previous episode. That still exists in this episode, but I like this episode
Okay.
because of the away mission and also what they give. Even though Book and Tarka are starting to get annoying, but they mixed it up a little bit in what they did. From let me see what I can say based upon the logline. As the logline says, Book and Tarka secretly infiltrate the U.S.S. Discovery. So some things happen that make sense based upon what we've seen earlier in the season. that make the dynamic, but that the things that they're doing that is obviously going to screw things up or make things more complicated. It makes that storyline more interesting. But also some things happen with that storyline that are surprising and is going to add an extra element to the mix in the next episode, which I appreciate. So they're not. At least I appreciate this episode for doing things with them, so that if they're going to keep them around and not just like have them arrested, doing things with them that will make that storyline more interesting. But also stuff on the planet. It was like classic Star Trek stuff, like weird planet. We've never been here before. Something's happening. Sort of Star Trek stuff that we've seen in many different episodes, and they have to kind of science their way out of the situation. So I really appreciated that. There was also a lot of nice emotional beats with Burnham, with Culber, with Saru, and there's a little bit of a spoiler, but whatchamacallit goes on the away mission with them, Detmer. So all of them have some nice emotional beats in this episode, and I appreciated that. And there's also a nice little C plot with Blu del Barrio's character, Adira. So that was also nice. There was something very small in this episode with the President Rillak, which I also appreciated. We can get into that when we talk about the spoiler. We break it down in the spoiler portion of the conversation. But she was in this episode very sparingly, but I appreciated how they used her in the episode. So yeah, but all in all, it was a good episode. I think that at this point, I would have liked to have seen 10C by now, but the fact that we didn't see them and this was a good episode is at least a nice consolation prize, I guess. So because it was I don't know if it was the best episode of the season, but it was one of the better episodes of the entire season for me. Okay. Any other thoughts? Spoiler free thoughts before we move on to spoiler talk. All right.
No,
so before we do that, I should say, if you're enjoying the conversation, please comment down below to join the conversation, like and subscribe to help the channel out. And also, if you're gonna go away, if you like, YouTube will recommend the video again, so you can see the rest of it when you've actually seen the episode. So that's the last warning that we're going to talk about spoilers. Okay. All right. So what do you want to start? You want to go in chronological order, or do you want to kind of jump around character to character?
I guess let's go chronological.
Okay, so I think the beginning of this episode, we get that Burnham and the crew are going to go off to the planet. We get a giant hero shot of them in the corridor with the spacesuits on, which is. Yeah, it was cool, but also it was gratuitous. It's like, why are you guys standing abreast in the corridor? No one could go past you. It's a corridor and a small ship, but whatever. But it looked nice. The costume department. I don't know I haven't looked up whether or not the costume department in this show is also the costume department in Picard. But both of the episodes came out today, and both of the costumes on both of the shows are looking awesome. So yeah, they fitted, like, not only fitting it, Doug Jones like lanky body, but also fitting his body inside of the prosthetics. I can imagine it was a difficult feat. Mm-hmm. So they had to do that for not just the away mission suit, but also the EV suit, the actual with the helmet and everything. So yeah, the costume department definitely deserves all the awards. So yeah, they meet in the cargo bay and they're talking to the delegates, and the delegates are some are on board, some of them are like, why are we stopping now? Which is kind of, I don't know, sort of what the audience is saying. Why are we stopping now? But I appreciated this exchange, because we had a couple. We had some audience surrogates in the delegates, right? We had the the general from Earth, and she's the most
Or,
dismayed
yeah.
about this stopover, and that was kind of caused by the, I forget the name of the scientist. Do you know his name off the top of your head? Because he's going to come up again later on from the Federation. Dr.
Tarka.
Hirari. I got him. Yeah. So
Oh
Dr.
yeah,
Hirari
yeah,
makes an offhanded joke about like, so don't screw up and come back with something, because
yeah. Which is like, I mean, I think
right,
everybody is thinking it, right? Like this,
yeah,
it's high stakes. We don't
yeah,
have a lot of time, but you see the argument that you should walk into with a potential with a new species. I don't want to say potential enemy, but new species that is this
with some
that much more
information, right,
powerful.
yeah.
The more you know,
Yeah.
right, the
So
better.
because you don't want
So
your intentions to be misconstrued. So it makes sense. It makes sense. And what I appreciated though was that President Rillak had her own questions, but she's developed a relationship with Burnham enough that she'd had that conversation with her, not in front of her people. She was like,
mhm.
why does Saru need to go? And she said, Saru, I mean, I understand you have to go. You should go as a anthropologist, but why does Saru need to go? He's your second in command here. And she said, well, he has the highest, more heightened senses than anyone else on the crew. So that makes sense. So I appreciated that the writers kind of anticipated the audience's objections and had them voiced through the through other characters in a way that wasn't like ham-fisted. It made sense that those people would ask those questions in that situation.
Yeah,
But yeah, the doctor's
yeah.
Dr. Hira comment kind of makes General Ndoye even more annoyed and upset that they're stopping here where they could just be going straight to 10C, because as we learned in the previous episode, Earth and Navarre are on the path of debris. So any minute, so
Yeah. And at this point, they have. I said, I think at this point, when this episode starts, they say they
yeah,
have 29 hours before they start to feel the
yeah,
impact of, yeah. So
yeah,
not a
and even I feel like 29 hours before the DMA hits something, in which case it doesn't really matter even if they stop it, because the debris would already be going in that direction, right? So I think they have, yeah, they definitely need to stop it before.
So that's a good point because I also, part of me has wondered, like, are they assuming that they have the capacity to
Yeah, I don't
reverse
I
the
don't
effect? Like, if they can
I
do
don't
it
think
in
they
enough
do. I don't think
time, like,
they assume that they have the ability to like stop it. That's why they're just trying to evacuate. I think we got 29 hours
mhm,
before it hits something large enough that they know that they can't get out of the way of, and they can't reverse
yeah,
the course of.
the
So
shockwave.
yeah, because I don't think it's 29 hours, because there are so many things in our solar system that the DMA could hit, that could destroy us before it actually hits Earth. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
and I'm sure there are things that I mean, Vulcan is supposed to be a nearby star system, so I don't know. And this thing is supposed to be several light years across. So yeah.
Mhm.
So we get that exchange, and then they go down to the planet. And they're in their suits. I'm sure if I'm getting the series of events. Okay, I think that then we go over to the ship with Tarka and Book.
Yeah. And they
Yeah,
hatch up a new
yeah. They hatch
plan,
up a new
right?
plan. They're gonna hitchhike on Discovery to get into the DMA, get into the this field and talk to Ten. Try to disable the power. Um, but
Yeah.
I mean, the issue here is that Zora is a sentient AI, and she's going to notice something is wrong, so they need to do it quickly. Even if they
Mhm.
deaden part of her sensors, she's going to notice that that part of her sensors is deadened, right? So they need to move quickly.
Right.
Yeah, she'll
She'll
figure it
figure it
out
out
eventually,
eventually.
right? Um, so we see a little bit of that. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention is that keep saying Blue. It's not Blue. Adira says to
Adira.
Detmer, "Fly good," in a very awkward and weird way, and we find out why later on. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
wonderfully awkward.
Which is kind of what I was talking about. I think a couple weeks ago when I said that they are the replacement for Tilly, I guess, on the crew, and probably a better. I mean, I love Tilly's character, but
Mm-hmm.
um, Tilly, the actress that plays Tilly, Wiseman and Sonequa Marker are exactly the same age, so having her play like the young
Oh,
whippersnapper was always a little
yeah.
weird. Yeah, yeah. So
Possible.
getting
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
who actually is young playing that part makes a little bit more sense, and giving her more responsibility as a teacher in Starfleet also is I think a good move. Um, I said I don't have all my notes here for so after that I think we go back to the planet, and very shortly after they get to the planet, Saru starts to bug out a little bit. I appreciated a
Yeah.
bit of what they were doing there because they kind of put you in the point of view of him and all the stuff that he's seeing, and also all the
Mm-hmm.
distorted yeah.
Yeah. And I think you felt that distress because it was, I had a moment like, what is happening? What is going on? What is he
Yeah.
seeing? Is it real? It's not real? That sort of feeling. So I appreciated that. And it reminded, like, even just sending Saru reminded me that, as much technology as we have, it there's some things that you probably can't replace yet, right? And having Saru, who just had that instant. So when they land, he and he
There are
checks for
no life
life
signs. Yeah.
signs, and he says to Burnham, I think, like, there are no life signs, and he's like, wait, I should have been clear. Like, I'm not even
Yeah.
picking up our life signs, right? Which automatically tells you that this environment is their instruments are probably not working the way
Exactly.
that they were
Exactly.
designed
Yeah.
to work, right? So clue number one, but his physiology automatically, or he was the first to respond to
Mm-hmm.
something on this planet, right? So um, that was helpful. But yeah, like that moment where he's just disoriented. And my first thought was that, oh, his fair response was that,
And
right?
it
And then
sort of was, but
later,
not in a natural way, as we
yeah,
find out later on, because all of them have that same response. But he,
yeah,
it's interesting that he after her what is it called, Horai or Bahari?
all
He
right.
hasn't felt any fear. Like I thought like he would feel like regular fear, like a regular person, as opposed to like always being afraid of death. But apparently he doesn't.
Yes. No, he's been cool as a cucumber this whole time, which was also shocking. It's like, oh, because I I think a sense of fear
Mm-hmm.
is a good thing, and not being afraid. And I think surprisingly, like, Saru is still able to give really
Mm-hmm.
sound advice, because I think if you don't fear anything, right, you're not, or I would
Yeah,
typically
I
think
think
people are not
the
as
reckless.
maybe as
You got maybe
thoughtful. I think,
reckless, right?
right,
So
right. And he's completely not. So I mean, I think maybe growing up feeling fear all the time maybe has conditioned him to
more cautious.
be
Yeah, yeah,
not reckless
and more
and
thoughtful.
thought
Yeah,
and
maybe.
cautious,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, to not it's just kind of strange to not um be
I think
afraid
what he
at
said
all.
specifically is
We
that
find
he
out.
hadn't felt this in a long time, and it was the coming of death.
Mhm.
And when we find out later why he feels the coming of death, because it goes to why he's what's happening to him, because that was what the 10C were feeling, that they were feeling the coming of death. So
Right.
yeah, it was interesting. So I mean, we can kind of we can actually continue on this plot because it goes back and forth. So like then Burnham starts to get a little disoriented because they just think that something's going on with him just because his senses are heightened, and that's not
Culber. Yeah, Culber.
Sorry, it was Culber. Sorry, it was Culber. Yes, because Culber hung back to check on him, right? So he hung back to check on him. And before this, actually, when he said that he doesn't, when Saru said that he doesn't sense any, or the scanners don't show any other life signs, they started. I mean, they had the weapons drawn already, but Burnham gave the order to like set them to stun, because if you don't know if anyone is alive, you don't know if someone's gonna like creep on you or anything. So yeah. So Culber hangs back. He tries to check him out, and he starts to hallucinate as well. And this is the first hint that it's not like in his head because the point of view that they showed you from Saru was like things were distorted, but you actually started to see things with Culber, like actually like phantoms and things with Culber, which was interesting. Then I think Detmer and Burnham go ahead into a structure that they see that was heavily fortified, and apparently this planet was a gas giant in the past, and now it's in ruins. Actually, the one thing that I forgot to mention from the beginning, when at the beginning of the episode we see that there's a Dyson sphere, not a Dyson sphere, but there are Dyson circles around the sun. Yeah. So similar to the Mandalorian, that episode where there was just this giant circle, but there was just like several of them. So that was interesting. So that you could see even before they got to their very high technological where they are right now, 10C is right now. They even before that, when they had to evacuate this planet, they were fairly advanced because I don't think anyone else that they know of has been able to do that. I mean, they found that Dyson sphere in one of the episodes of TNG, but that race had long since died off. So, good.
And I do find a remnant because there's a I guess I don't know if you would call it a fossil on the surface, right? So the tents also seem to be very large. Like,
So what I was thinking was large. Until you said at the beginning when we were doing the spoiler-free section that the producer said this is going to be a new alien. What I thought it was going to be was the aliens from Star Trek 4. You know, that wanted to get the whale sounds or something like that. Wanted to get a response from the whales. I thought it was going to be like big, like they're going to be big like that, and they were going to be kind of whale-like. But if it's going to be a new thing, then I guess not. But I guess we'll see.
But when they get inside that structure, you see these sort of cephalopod-looking things everywhere, and I don't know if that's like other additional like fossils or husks of the species 10C or something else. But you sort of see these like tentacled things all over in the background. So you're still not sure like what, and they realize that the structure is a nursery, right? And it's where the young were housed. I guess there's still a lot you don't know, but you see all of these, and they think that the structures would have originally been, or Dr. Culber thinks they would have been more like cartilage.
Right. So they're younger. Bone. Yeah. So he's thinking that was younger in their development. So right. Yeah.
They're soft bodied and So I guess you still don't quite know. And then also seeing something alive and breathing as opposed to dead. There's still a lot to a lot less
Yeah,
to the
it
imagination.
reminds me of
Yeah.
that meme of the dinosaur bones, if like an alien was to put it together as opposed to what it really looks like. Like you can make all kinds of
Yeah.
leaps based upon just bones that have nothing to do with the actual animal.
Yeah.
Um, so
Right.
or I think they had one with a hippo bones, and what a hippo actually looks like compared to the bones. So yeah, so they have more information than they had before, but they can't make any leaps. That that will be very instructive to them, seeing as how these bones are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of years old. Who knows when Tennessee evacuated the planet? Um,
I think they
the,
said 1,000 years. They were able to
okay, yeah,
somehow figure out that it was 1,000 years since the structure, the Dyson
hmm
ribbons had been built, and since they left the planet. They don't. I don't think they
yeah,
really say how, but Culber, it was kind of funny because Culber on the way down to the planet in the shuttle makes the comment that it's good to know that physics still works the same here as it does
in their
on
galaxy,
their
yeah.
side, right?
I mean, it should, but
Right. And it's like, okay,
yeah,
right, it
right,
should, but it's like you never know, right? There could be something
yeah,
funky going on here that they haven't, or even like a natural phenomenon that they
right,
just never experienced
yeah,
before. So I was like, yeah, that's like a nice reminder that you should be
yeah.
able to figure out the problem if if the physics
And
all
biology sort of works the same way as
all
well, I guess. I mean, although if you speak to, I mean, you would know better than I think that there some scientists think that our view of life is probably too narrow and specific to our planet, and there are other ways of possible ways that life could arrive in the universe that we haven't really thought about or are looking for. So that's also a thing that could happen outside of our galaxy or even our solar system. So there's that as well. Um, so I think this is around the time that Burnham gets infected and she starts to see things, and the only person
Mhm.
who isn't affected is Detmer. And I started to think that Detmer wasn't being affected because of her implants or something like that. Yeah,
Yes, I thought that too. When they didn't bring it up, I was like, is this not like a logical? Because I one of the things I also loved about this scene was them all
yeah,
sort of working together, reassuring each other that like we're okay, like we're
right.
seeing some crazy stuff, but are in fact okay,
Yeah,
and like
I'm
talking
glad.
through the
I'm glad none
problem
of them
and
freaked
trying to
out
figure
enough
it
to
out.
like pull off their
Yeah,
helmets or something like that, or yeah.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
they work through a problem, and Detmer finds that their suits, while they're filtering out things based upon signatures that they have from their galaxy. So she figures out that they're
Yeah.
hydrocarbons that are affecting them. So she filters those out, and all of them get back to normal. But I think they go a little bit further into the
Hmm.
cavern, and I think they come to the decision or the thought that the hydrocarbons were related to the feelings of the Tennessee. So they turn off the filters to
Yeah.
try to see what they could feel from inside of the nursery, and this is when we get a lot of reveals from
Yeah.
all of them, especially Detmer. She kind of gets an info
Hmm.
dump about her dad kind of being vacant or not around after her mom died. This is similar to
It's been.
the info dumps that all of the bridge crew has given, but I didn't
Mhm.
mind this one because this one made sense within context. Not only did it make sense within context, later in the episode, she apologizes for losing control. So like she acknowledges that was kind of like a bit of a weird thing to share in the middle in the middle of the mission.
Her.
So
Yeah.
I actually it was more fluidly and more organically placed into this episode than the random pieces of bio information that we get from the other bridge crew. Not only that, the other thing that I mentioned last week is that because we know more about Detmer, that's just filling in a little bit more information. She had a whole arc last season, and this is giving us a better
Hmm.
understanding of who she is. even though it was just a little bit
Yeah.
bit of information. But it's not like this is the first piece of information we got about her backstory, and then they dropped it. So that's also why it worked better for me. Culber is also dealing with his stuff, and we get a scene later on with Burnham and him talking about that and on all the things that the experience brought up as well. I guess it's not very. It's not. But sorry. Yeah, they.
I said they were all overwhelmed by that feeling of love, because that's like what it was. And I think, I mean, they take some leaps with the insight they think gives them into 10C, because they're like, oh, this is a nursery, they care for children.
They care for life.
Be like, well,
they care for their children. Children. Exactly. So
right? Their children, their lives, right? We don't know if this is a universal, like they're gonna love. I mean,
especially just knowing what we know about the world that we live in. The things and the hatred that people are able to enact and orchestrate within their lives, even though they have children, against other people's children, even in our world, against other humans is astounding. So I am yes, they are capable of love of their own offspring. That's not always the case with every species. I understand that, but
right.
It does.
And they go through they take a lot of effort to protect. They're taking a lot of effort to protect their offspring and themselves, right? Which I think, I mean, I hope that they are a benevolent species, but I'm also like, if you go through that much trouble to protect yourself from whatever threats you may perceive, I'm not super hopeful that you're gonna extend
the same charity to
your sort of ring of protection
to other people. And that's the point that Culber makes when they get back into the runabout or the shuttle, and to go back to the Discovery. Like they Saru is hopeful, and Culber, I think, says that what if they. Sorry. Is Saru that's saying? Okay, yeah. Is Saru that says that? Yeah. What if they know and they don't care? You know and don't care. And that's definitely a possibility. Which is kind of what, if we go back to this Discovery and the ridiculousness that Tarka and Book are doing, that's kind of the point that's made later on in that episode as well. So they get onto the ship, and I sort of how they jump through the Jeffries tube and land like an action hero. Like, I understand Book, but Tarka's like a scientist. I'm not sure why he got the action hero landing, because I'm not sure how many times they had to shoot that. It just struck me as funny. So they spy a conversation between President Serena and General Ndoye, and she's just expressing her concern and annoyance that we're not going on to 10C, and that puts a bug in Book's mind, because if you remember back in the previous episode when they took a vote, she was one of the people who said, we should destroy the DMA. So this is one of the things that I was talking about earlier in the spoiler-free section, when I said it made sense to approach her. It also made sense that she nearly cut him when
right. When he said that, I was like, are you thinking this through? Because you two are the reason why Earth and Navarre are now in danger. Certainly, much sooner than they would have been, right? Before you destroyed the DMA, we thought we had a week. Now we got less than 2 days. So I don't know why he thought she would be as friendly, you know, but I appreciated that she did, she had to be stopped from cutting him. I'm like,
not only that, but he's approaching her in like a dark corridor without. He could have said something. He's just like touching her on the shoulder. It's like, what is this?
You don't sneak up on people at a time like this.
So she is sympathetic to him, but she also isn't crazy, right? She says that yes, I was for your plan, but you have to let diplomacy work. So, and he agrees to that. So they have an inside person now on the ship, who are sort of aligned with their aims. The other thing is that Tarka is in engineering, and he needed to
Mm-hmm.
create a diversion to put whatever they needed to put into engineering. So he has Reno go off and chase down
He
replicators,
sabotaged
yeah, replicators
replicators,
all
right?
over the ship. Um, oh, before I get into that, Reno, I think on the ship we get another beat with Adira and Reno, and we figure out what
Mm-hmm.
what Adira's awkward thing was earlier on. Apparently, they admire Detmer
That
for her like stalwartness, and they have a little bit of an exchange there with Reno, and Reno says maybe you should approach her and and try to become friends, and but probably don't start with I want to be you, because that would be weird, and I think yes. Yeah.
could be.
uh,
Yeah. But I think she also clues her into the fact that, Detmer had her experience.
yeah,
Like, she is not, I mean, she certainly has
yeah,
she is confident and capable, and she's aware of that. But we had a moment where we saw her
yeah,
lose, lose it because Discovery had been through so much. And I think rightfully, like, you see a lot of moments here where they acknowledge that they're not okay. And it makes sense because they're going through these experiences, like
yeah,
life altering, galaxy altering experiences,
yeah.
regularly, right? And not having time to
Yeah, because
process.
they have to move on to the
And
next thing, because
Adira,
they have to perform, right? Yeah,
and Adira in comparison, I mean, Adira has
right,
certainly been through things, but relatively
right.
speaking, not as much, and hasn't seen as much, and doesn't know. So she sort of just sees, and she
Yeah,
they're awkward, right? And wanting to be confident, and seeing
mm-hmm.
somebody who has that, wanting to, I guess, learn how to be that. But I appreciated Jess one was like, no, we're all screwed up. You should assume that everybody is a little
Yeah,
bit messed up
yeah.
inside,
They're
which I
not
think is
privy to all
right.
the scenes that we get with Detmer all last season, and even the scene in this very episode where she kind of loses it a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah. I appreciated that, and I appreciated how they ended that in the episode when they actually go up to Detmer and try to strike up a conversation. It seems Detmer is kind of in her thoughts as well about what happened on the away mission, because it was a lot. I'm sure it was a lot. It was a lot of emotions to
Mm-hmm.
be forced on you. Um, so yeah,
Mm-hmm. In a
yeah,
situation where you weren't prepared and in front of people you would not have expressed those emotions in
yeah.
front
So
of, right, your
she's definitely
superiors,
processing.
essentially.
And
Mm-hmm.
but she's also open to striking up a conversation and also a friendship. And she also chides Adira for saying fly good. So that was a nice little button. So I appreciate that they have different pairings, because it's mostly just Owo and Detmer, and then we have Bryce
Mm-hmm.
and Reese. So I appreciate that they're doing different things there. Um, but back to engineering. Engineering, Tarka sends Reno all over the ship. She comes back to engineering and finds him, and we get this whole back half of the episode. I'm like, where's the other shoe going to drop? Is like Tarka in a holding cell? Why is no one mentioning that Tarka was an intruder? Why is this? Yeah.
Was
So
caught,
apparently, I don't know how he did this, but seeing as how he was under a console, but he got the drop on her, and now she's a prisoner
right?
of him. I don't know. I guess I guess she wasn't expecting to see him under there, but it seemed like she was kind of nonplussed about the when she saw him. She didn't really react in like a shocked way. I thought that
but she doesn't. I think that's her that's her nature. Like I mean, she knew,
someone was,
she guessed
yeah,
that it was
and she also guessed
sabotage
that someone was
for the
there,
replicator,
right?
and she
Yeah,
was like, "What?"
I don't,
So yeah, I would like to know how
yeah,
she wound up
especially
as
since
their
all of them
hostage.
have. It's not like she had to go to a arms locker to get a phaser. All of their phasers are in the badge now, so she could have had a weapon immediately. So I don't know how he got the drop on
Yeah.
her. But that's the element that I was saying that will make their dynamic more interesting, because having her crack jokes and be snarky on the ship is going to make
Hmm.
cutting away to them more interesting going forward. So I
Yeah.
appreciate
And she's not stupid. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like she's as smart as Tarka. She definitely understands. I think as much as like
mm-hmm.
when he was doing that test, created
Yeah,
that mini DMA. Like she, I mean, she at least appreciated how
yeah,
dangerous what he was
yeah.
doing was, right? And so I'm curious to see that. I mean, I sense she's going to antagonize him. They'll probably antagonize each other, but I also don't think she's going to fall for his nonsense. Like Book, when he talks to the general, he's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to turn off the controller," and I'm still like, and then what? Like you think you're just going to be able to turn this power source off, and you know that Tarka
Yeah.
wants to
Also, yeah.
take the
What if?
power source for his own motives, right? How are you going to
Yeah.
negotiate this? Or not negotiate? You're just going to steal it, and now you've created this
Incident.
intergalactic
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah, it's
incident,
definitely
right?
intergalactic.
Like
It's
how
because
is
they're
this?
outside of their galaxy, so they're going to create an intergalactic.
Yeah,
I don't know. And the other thing is that does he really think that Tarka is going to be okay with what he promised the general? Because what he promised the general was, if diplomacy is okay, it works, then we stop. But Tarka doesn't want to stop. He wants the power source, so he's just going to do what he did before
right.
and push forward anyway. So I feel like Book just doesn't learn with Tarka. I mean, I understand we got a little bit more of his
Yeah.
backstory last episode to give us, make us more sympathetic to him, but he's not. His essential nature hasn't changed. He's single-mindedly focused on doing what he wants to do to get back to his friend. So, yeah, that's not going to end well, but it should be interesting with Jett Reno in the mix. I think that
But also, like,
sir,
I mean, Jett is her character is an
yeah,
essential part of the crew. So
she's,
how long before they
yeah,
realize she's
she's
gone?
like the chief engineer. Yes,
Because the whole reason, right? The whole reason you went on Discovery is to not be discovered, and now you've taken a hostage from Discovery, right? She didn't just go off into thin air. So I'm just like this. I mean, yeah, it's going to be entertaining to watch
yeah,
what happens next week, but also
yeah.
just highly ridiculous.
I think the last thing is that conversation that Burnham has with Culber in her ready room, when he says that this the situation brought up a lot of emotions, and it's not. I guess that conversation isn't necessarily novel, because we've been tracking his progression for the last several episodes, and we know he's been struggling. But what I appreciated with that scene is something that most people are not going to appreciate, is that they were drinking Mobby, uh, uh, which is like the Puerto Rican pronunciation for Mobby, the Mobby drink. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
I meant to
So
look it
that's
up.
how that's
Mobby.
how
Oh my
that's how Puerto
god.
Ricans pronounce.
I
There's a
was like,
V, Mavi. So
yeah.
I'm from Barbados, or my family's from Barbados, and we pronounce it
Mhm.
Mavi. I'm not. Do they pronounce it? Do they pronounce it
Yeah. And I lived
Mavi
in
in
Barbados.
Bahamas as well? Or, you don't drink? Oh, you don't drink
No, we
Mavi.
don't drink Mobby. Like when I went there, that was a whole new thing, and I could not understand the fascination. And I say this as
Yeah,
somebody who likes Campari and drinks other things. I was like, I don't
yeah. It's
understand
like it's
Mobby
like a
at
bark of
all.
a tree.
But
It's
to
like
each their
the
own.
bark of a tree.
It is.
So I appreciated that nice little cultural element there, because they kind of alluded to his culture earlier on in the
Yeah.
episode as well. sorry, early on in the season as well, when he talks the book about the standing or the sitting funeral when they
Yeah.
which I guess is another Puerto Rican tradition, which I wasn't aware of, but it was interesting the different traditions that are shared within amongst the Caribbean islands and the different names for things that are exactly the same. So yeah. Anything else? Did I miss anything else?
I don't think able that there was that moment in the beginning, I think, with did you touch on it? Rillak and
Oh
where she
yeah.
sort of brought
The
him in
guy.
line.
I started to touch on it, but I didn't. So like the doctor what it Harari. He kind of threw cold water on the mission at the beginning, and then she had a one-on-one conversation with him, basically saying, be cool, man. like we're
Yeah,
already a very tense situation. You're not really helping anything. And he still, it's like they had that whole conversation. He still had to be reminded of it in the conversation later on. They come back with this information. They said a bunch of dots. They sent a bunch of dots down to the planet to get even more hydrocarbons to and they so
yeah,
there's more than just fear and love. They have more information. But in the episode it's named
yeah.
Rosetta, but he's like the Rosetta also had another language. It had two languages. So like it's like, and she darts to look at him and just yeah, it's like
Staring.
oh, but it's a great start. Yeah,
Good job. Good work.
yeah. He's
Yeah,
he's
but but I think yeah, like I appreciated her like recognizing and the incredible burden she must be
mhm,
bearing, right, as president, like the need to keep people focused and calm and
yeah,
motivated to figure this out. Because I imagine, people want to
yeah,
freak out, right? But you still have a really important mission to do, and it's not like you have an armada of
right.
starships coming behind you. Like
This is it,
this is
right,
kind of this is it. You get this job done, or you
right.
don't get it done at all. So
Hello, your favorite ugly Asian guys
What's
here.
so yeah, so it's almost time for our
Oh,
Picard review. But yeah, so I thought it was I
yeah,
like you said, I enjoyed it because it was a
hmm
very much a classic. It felt very
hmm
classic Star Trek episode. Learning a little bit more, and yeah, so we'll see what
yeah.
happens next week.
I don't know. Did I miss anything else? I think that was it. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Book and Tarka and how they screw things up as they go in as they enter it as they try to contact 10C. Yeah, I mean the situation would have been already interesting and difficult without this element hanging
hmm
off the end. So we'll I guess we'll have to see what
and also see how the general, like, if she decides to disclose
yeah,
um what she's doing, or she, because that also, like she
yeah,
said, that's a big risk, and you risk
yeah,
losing people's trust. So
yeah. Well, that is what we think. We want to hear what you guys think. So please comment down below to join the conversation and to get more content like this. And we will see you next time. All right. Bye. Thanks, guys.